23 hours and 45 minutes, 15 minutes before midnight on December 16, 1944. Inside a frozen trench in Bastogne, Sergeant Michael Grayson was doing something his comrades considered a waste of time. He spent the last 15 minutes of each day preparing his mind for the next day's war. While other soldiers simply passed out from exhaustion, Grayson mentally reviewed every position, every movement, every decision he would need to make at dawn. My grandfather, who slept in the same trench, noted, "Grayson sleeps last and wakes first. Not because he's better than us, because he understands that tomorrow's war is won today in the last minutes before closing his eyes." For 6 months in Bastogne, my grandfather documented something disturbing. Soldiers who simply collapsed from exhaustion every night were 3 times more likely to make fatal mistakes the next day than those who, like Grayson, dedicated 15 minutes before bed to preparing their minds. It wasn't superstition. It wasn't luck. It was brutal science learned in combat. Grayson survived 17 direct attacks. Others who ignored the nightly ritual died in the first or second. What did he do in those 15 minutes? How did he prepare his mind to face death at dawn? And why might this same method be the difference between waking up victorious or defeated tomorrow? You will discover the nightly protocol that kept soldiers alive and how to apply it in your invisible war against the uncontrolled mind that sabotages your tomorrow before it even begins. I found my grandfather's diaries in a rusty metal box hidden behind old tools in the basement, 3 weeks after the funeral. He had never mentioned Bastogne. He never described the cold that turned men into corpses before any bullet hit them. He never admitted that he carried the weight of having survived when dozens of his comrades were not so lucky. But there, in those notebooks with yellowed and stained pages, he had recorded everything with a brutal honesty that only men who have looked death in the eye can possess. The first entry that paralyzed me was dated December 18, 1944, 2 days after the start of the siege. My grandfather described how Sergeant Michael Grayson, a soldier in his unit, had developed a nightly ritual that the others found strange, almost obsessive. While everyone else simply collapsed from exhaustion when night fell, Grayson would spend 15 minutes in absolute silence, eyes closed, doing something that no one fully understood. For weeks, the other soldiers mocked this habit. They called it a waste of time. They said Grayson should take advantage of every possible second of sleep instead of lying there like a frozen statue before bed. But my grandfather noticed a disturbing pattern that led him to obsessively document it. In the morning attacks, when chaos erupted without warning, and every second of reaction meant the difference between life and death, Grayson was always one step ahead. Not because of faster reflexes or better aim. He was ahead because his mind had already fought that battle the night before. While other soldiers woke up disoriented, needing precious seconds to process what was happening, Grayson already knew exactly what to do because he had prepared his mind for that specific scenario before closing his eyes. After 6 months of observing, my grandfather calculated that soldiers who simply passed out from exhaustion were 300% more likely to make fatal mistakes the next day compared to those who followed some kind of nightly mental preparation. What devastated my grandfather wasn't just discovering this pattern, but realizing how many deaths could have been avoided if he had understood it sooner. How many men died because they went to sleep with chaotic, disorganized minds, unprepared for the war that would come with the dawn. Grayson survived Bastogne. He survived the following months. He returned home when the war ended. But 9 of the 12 soldiers who shared the trench with him that brutal winter weren't so lucky. And my grandfather carried the painful question until his last day. What if he had taught Grayson's method to all of them? Today, 80 years later, you face a different but equally brutal war. You're not in Bastogne. There are no Germans shooting at you. But every night you go to sleep defeated, exhausted, with chaotic minds, and every morning you wake up already losing the battle before it even begins. If you want to honor Sergeant Michael Grayson and the soldiers who died because no one taught them to prepare their minds for war, leave your like now. Don't abandon these men. Help ensure that the knowledge they bought with their blood reaches others who need to win the invisible war they face every day. Sergeant Michael Grayson had no training in psychology. He hadn't read studies on neuroscience or how the brain processes information during sleep. He was a mechanic from Detroit who was drafted in 1943 and learned everything he knew about war in the most brutal way possible, watching men die from stupid mistakes that could have been avoided. What Grayson discovered out of sheer necessity for survival would take decades for science to formally confirm. He realized that the mind doesn't shut down when you sleep. It continues working, processing, organizing, preparing you for whatever comes next. But here was the deadly problem that cost lives every morning. If you go to sleep with a chaotic, disorganized mind, full of fear, directionless thoughts and random thoughts, that's how you wake up. And in combat, waking up disoriented means dying in the first few seconds of a surprise attack. My grandfather recorded a conversation he had with Grayson in January 1945, 3 weeks after he began observing the pattern. Grayson explained that before developing the nightly ritual, he would wake up every day with his mind in a panic, reacting to the chaos instead of commanding the situation. It took precious seconds for his mind to shift from confusion mode to combat mode. Those seconds were the difference between life and death. So he began testing something simple but revolutionary for that context. In the last 15 minutes before going to sleep, he forced his mind to enter the next day. He visualized every possible scenario. He imagined the attack coming from the left, from the right, from above, from below. Mentally, he had already fought the battle, dozens of times before closing his eyes. The result was that when the actual attack happened, his brain didn't go into shock. He already knew that war. He had already mentally died and survived it during the night. What Grayson didn't know was that he was intuitively applying what neuroscience today calls procedural memory consolidation and pre-sleep cognitive preparation. During sleep, especially in REM sleep stages, the brain reconsolidates memories, strengthens neural connections, and prepares automatic response patterns. When you dedicate the last few minutes before sleep to visualizing specific scenarios and decisions, you are literally programming your brain to execute those responses automatically when needed. Soldiers who simply passed out from exhaustion wasted this critical period of mental programming. They went to sleep in chaos mode and woke up in chaos mode. Grayson went to sleep in preparation mode and woke up in combat mode. The difference between these two mental states at dawn was measured in bodies that returned alive and bodies that did not. But there was something even deeper that Grayson discovered, and that my grandfather took years to fully understand while reading the diaries. The nightly ritual wasn't just about tactical preparation. It was about psychological control in an environment where almost everything was out of control. Soldiers who went to sleep feeling powerless, at the mercy of fate, woke up defeated before the battle even began. Grayson used those 15 minutes to regain a sense of command over his own mind. He didn't control when the Germans would attack. He didn't control the weather, the ammunition available, or how many men would be by his side. But he did control how his mind would enter the next day. And that minimal control was enough to keep him sane amidst the utter insanity of war. You're not in Bastogne. There are no grenades exploding around you. There are no German machine guns pointed at your head. But you're facing the same war that killed 9 of the 12 soldiers in my grandfather's trench. Only your version is slower, quieter, more socially acceptable. Every night you go to sleep defeated. Your mind is chaotic, full of regrets from the day that passed, anxiety about the day to come, guilt for everything you didn't do, shame for everything you did wrong. You simply pass out from emotional exhaustion, hoping that somehow, magically, you'll wake up different tomorrow. But you don't. You wake up the same way you went to sleep, disorganized, directionless, already losing the first battle of the day, which is simply getting out of bed at the time you promised yourself the night before. And while you negotiate for another 5 minutes, another 10 minutes, another half hour, the invisible enemy has already gained territory you never recover. What Sergeant Grayson understood and what you ignore is that tomorrow's war is won today, in the last 15 minutes before you close your eyes. Those 15 minutes are the training ground where your mind learns to win or learns to lose. If you go to sleep without preparing your mind, without visualizing the battles you will face, without deciding in advance how you will react when the alarm rings, when temptation appears, when laziness whispers that you deserve another day of rest, then you are programming your mind to fail. It's not poetic, it's not motivational, it's mechanical and brutal, as war has always been. Your mind is a weapon that needs to be calibrated every night. If you don't calibrate it, It fires against you instead of against the enemy. Think about the last 30 days of your life. How many times did you go to sleep with a clear, firm, and specific plan for the next day? How many times did you dedicate 15 minutes before falling asleep to mentally rehearsing how you would wake up, how you would face the first hours, how you would react to situations you already know are coming? The honest answer for most people is zero. 0 times in 30 days. They go to sleep the same way dead soldiers used to go to sleep, with the vague hope that everything would work out without any real preparation, trusting in luck instead of trusting in discipline. And then they wake up surprised when the day defeats them in the first 15 minutes, when the bed wins the battle, when procrastination takes over, when the disorganized mind turns an entire day into a waste. What my grandfather learned by watching Grayson and obsessively documenting the difference between soldiers who survived and soldiers who died was that nightly mental preparation isn't a luxury for when you have time. It's the bare minimum necessary to avoid being massacred by your own mind the next day. Grayson didn't spend 15 minutes before bed because he was special, enlightened, or had some unique gift. He did it because he had seen men die for not doing it. He had buried comrades who were better shooters, faster, physically stronger, but who woke up with unprepared minds and paid the price in the first seconds of combat. You're paying the same price every morning, only instead of dying physically, you die in pieces over decades, wasting day after day because you never learned to prepare your mind to win the invisible war that begins the moment you open your eyes. My grandfather managed to get Grayson to explain exactly what he did during those 15 nightly minutes in a conversation recorded in his diary on January 23, 1945. The description was surprisingly simple, almost disappointing in its lack of complexity. There were no mystical mantras, no elaborate meditation techniques, nothing that required years of practice to master. It was as direct and brutal as everything else in the war. Grayson dedicated the first 5 minutes to clearing his mind of the day that had passed. He mentally reviewed the mistakes, the bad decisions, the moments of weakness, not to torture himself with guilt, but to extract the lesson and then discard the rest. Soldiers who went to sleep ruminating on failures woke up carrying the dead weight of yesterday into tomorrow's battle. Grayson extracted the learning and let the rest die with the day that had already ended. The next 5 minutes were dedicated to visualizing the next day's battlefield, not vaguely or generically, but with specific tactical details. He imagined waking up when his mental alarm went off before dawn. He visualized leaving the trench, checking his equipment, taking up position. Mentally, he had already done all of this dozens of times before actually doing it. When the real moment arrived, his body simply executed what his mind had already trained during the night. There was no hesitation. There was no deadly "what do I do now" moment that cost lives. He already knew. He had already done it. He was just repeating something his mind considered familiar. The last 5 minutes were the most critical, and the ones my grandfather took the longest to fully understand. Grayson used them to make advanced decisions about how he would react to specific situations he knew he might face. If the attack comes from the left, I move to the right and cover the flank. If my weapon jams, I don't panic. I execute the unlocking procedure I've mentally practiced 1,000 times. If fear paralyzes me, I don't fight it. I acknowledge it and act despite it. These pre-made decisions eliminated the need to think under pressure. When the actual situation arose, Grayson didn't need to decide anything. He had already decided the night before. His brain simply accessed the archived decision and executed it. Other soldiers died in the seconds they spent trying to decide what to do while chaos exploded around them. Grayson survived because he had eliminated the need for decision-making at the critical moment through anticipatory decisions made safely 15 minutes before going to sleep. What devastated my grandfather when he read about this decades later was realizing how many applications this simple protocol had for everyday life and how many people were slowly dying by ignoring it. You'll go to sleep tonight without having made any advanced decisions about tomorrow. You haven't decided what time you'll actually wake up without negotiation. You haven't visualized what it will be like to get out of bed when the alarm goes off. You haven't anticipated the moment when laziness will whisper that you deserve 5 more minutes. And you haven't decided how you'll react to that whisper. So tomorrow, when those moments arrive, you'll have to decide under pressure, with your mind still hazy from sleep, with your willpower at its lowest level of the day, and you'll lose that decision. You'll lose like you lose every day, because you're trying to win a war without preparation, relying on spontaneous motivation that never appears. If you want to learn the rest of the protocol that kept Grayson alive and apply it to your invisible war, subscribe to this channel now. Join the trenches of men and women who have decided to stop dying slowly and start winning their battles through brutal preparation. Don't abandon Sergeant Grayson. Enlist and honor the method he purchased at the risk of his life. There was a soldier in the same trench as Grayson, named Private Robert Hayes. My grandfather described him as physically superior to Grayson in almost every aspect. Faster, a better shot, stronger, younger. Hayes was 22 years old and came from a military family. His father had fought in World War I. He grew up hearing stories of combat. Theoretically, Hayes should have been the most prepared soldier in that trench. But there was a devastating difference between him and Grayson that my grandfather documented with clinical precision over weeks. Hayes would go to sleep the way you will sleep tonight. He would simply pass out. He would collapse from exhaustion without any kind of mental preparation, trusting that his physical strength and training would be enough when dawn brought the next attack. For 2 months, Hayes survived by sheer luck and the soldiers around him who compensated for his slow reactions in the first few seconds of each ambush. But war doesn't respect wasted potential. In March 1945, during a German attack at dawn, Hayes woke up as he always did, disoriented, his mind taking precious seconds to switch from sleep mode to combat mode. Those seconds cost him his life. My grandfather noted that Hayes died with full ammunition, his weapon functioning perfectly, his equipment in order. He didn't die for lack of resources. He died because his mind wasn't ready when it needed to be. He had gone to sleep the night before without visualizing that scenario, without making any advanced decisions about how he would react, without mentally preparing his body to perform under pressure. He woke up and needed to think, and thinking under enemy fire is the same as dying slowly. Grayson, in the same ambush, survived because he had fought that battle mentally 15 times the night before. When it actually happened, his body simply executed what his mind had already rehearsed. What my grandfather realized when comparing Hayes and Grayson is that natural talent without mental preparation is inferior to average discipline with consistent preparation. Hayes had more physical potential, but Grayson had something infinitely more valuable: control over how his mind would approach the next day. And in war, as in life, the battle is won or lost in the first few seconds. If you wake up with a prepared, organized mind, with decisions already made, you start winning. If you wake up disoriented, needing to figure out what to do while chaos is already happening, you've already lost before getting out of bed. You are Hayes. You have wasted potential. You have resources you never use. You have capacity that never manifests because you go to sleep every night without preparing your mind to win tomorrow's war. Think honestly about tonight. When you finally go to sleep, will you simply drift off to sleep scrolling through your phone until your eyes close? Will you fall asleep watching something random, your mind filled with meaningless stimuli without direction, without purpose? Will your last conscious thought of the day be something that has no relation to the person you need to be tomorrow when you wake up? And then tomorrow, when the alarm goes off, you'll wake up like Hayes woke up, with a foggy, disoriented mind, needing minutes to even remember why you set that alarm for that time. The battle will already be lost. The invisible enemy will have already gained territory, and you'll spend the rest of the day trying to recover what you lost in the first 15 minutes, but you never recover. You never recover because you keep going to sleep unprepared, trusting that tomorrow will be different by some miracle that never happens. Decades after the war, when my grandfather was in his 70s, he found scientific studies that finally explained why Grayson's method worked with almost surgical precision. Neuroscience researchers had discovered something Grayson had learned out of necessity for survival in Bastogne. The human brain doesn't distinguish between vividly imagined experiences and real experiences when it comes to creating automatic response patterns. When Grayson spent 15 minutes before bed visualizing combat scenarios and his responses to them, his brain was literally building and strengthening the neural connections necessary to perform those actions automatically. During sleep, especially during REM sleep, these connections were consolidated, transformed into procedural memory, the type of memory that allows you to perform complex actions without consciously thinking about them. Soldiers like Hayes, who simply passed out without preparation, wasted this critical period of neural consolidation. Their brains spent the night randomly processing the day's stimuli, without direction, without purpose, without building the response patterns that would save their lives the next day. They woke up with their minds as disorganized as they were when they went to sleep. Grayson woke up with strengthened neural patterns, with automatic responses ready to be triggered, with decisions already made that only needed to be executed. The difference between these two mental states at dawn was literally measurable in milliseconds of reaction time and in combat. Milliseconds mean the difference between a body that returns home and a body that stays on the battlefield. But there was something even deeper happening during those 15 nightly minutes that modern science would confirm. When you dedicate the pre-sleep period to structured mental visualization and anticipatory decision-making, you are activating what neuroscientists call the brain's prospective simulation system. This system allows you to essentially travel to the future mentally, experience situations before they happen, and return to the present with real learning about how to deal with them. Grayson was using this system to transform uncertainty into certainty, chaos into order, paralyzing fear into focused action. He wasn't eliminating the real danger he would face at dawn, but he was eliminating the danger of mental surprise, disorientation, and the paralysis that comes from not knowing what to do. You have access to the exact same neural system that kept Grayson alive. Your brain works the same way. It has the same capacity to consolidate memories during sleep, to strengthen neural connections through mental visualization, to create automatic response patterns through prospective simulation. But you waste this power every night because you go to sleep with your mind full of garbage, random notifications, meaningless videos, circular thoughts about things you can't control, diffuse anxiety without direction. Your brain spends the night processing this garbage, consolidating procrastination patterns, strengthening neural connections of indiscipline, preparing you to wake up exactly as you went to sleep, disorganized, without purpose, defeated before the first battle of the day. If you recognize that you are wasting the most critical period of mental preparation that exists and want to honor soldiers like Grayson, who discovered this knowledge by paying the ultimate price, then leave your like now. Don't abandon the knowledge bought with blood. Leave your like and help spread this method to others who are slowly dying by ignoring it. My grandfather recorded a conversation in February 1945 where Grayson described the 3 biggest obstacles preventing other soldiers from adopting the nightly ritual of mental preparation. The first enemy was exhaustion, which seemed to justify simply passing out without preparation. Soldiers argued that they were too tired, that 15 minutes of extra sleep were more valuable than 15 minutes of mental preparation. Grayson explained that this was the deadliest trap because it seemed rational. But the brutal truth was that those 15 minutes of preparation determined whether you would wake up ready to survive or ready to die. Trading preparation for extra sleep was like trading ammunition for food. You might be more comfortable in the short term, but you'll be unarmed when the battle begins. Exhaustion always whispers that you deserve effortless rest, but rest without preparation is just another form of slow surrender. The second enemy was the need for immediate distraction before sleep. Soldiers wanted to read letters, talk about anything but war, distract their minds from the horror they experienced daily. Grayson understood the impulse. He also wanted to escape mentally. He also felt the temptation to fill the last conscious minutes of the day with something, anything, that wasn't preparation for more combat. But he had learned that pre-sleep distraction was poison disguised as relief. When you distract your mind before sleep, you are programming your brain to wake up distracted. You are teaching your neural system that it is acceptable to fall asleep without direction, without purpose, without preparation. And your brain learns this lesson perfectly well. It wakes up exactly as you trained it, scattered, unfocused, vulnerable to the first attacks of the day. The third enemy was the most insidious because it came disguised as wisdom, the belief that excessive mental preparation would cause anxiety and prevent sleep. Some soldiers argued that thinking about tomorrow's battle before bed would keep them awake all night, trapped in cycles of worry. Grayson showed that this was confusing preparation with worry. Worry is thinking repeatedly about dangers without making any decisions about how to face them. Preparation is visualizing specific scenarios and making anticipatory decisions about specific responses. Worry keeps you awake because it leaves everything open-ended, creating a sense of unresolved threat. Preparation allows you to sleep because it closes mental loops, transforms uncertainty into planning, diffuse fear into directed action. Soldiers who went to bed worried stayed awake and woke up tired. Soldiers who went to bed prepared slept deeply and woke up ready. You face the exact same three enemies every night. Exhaustion, which whispers that you're too tired to dedicate 15 minutes to preparing your mind. Distraction, which offers temporary relief through endless scrolling through feeds, watching one more episode, consuming yet another piece of meaningless content, and the false belief that thinking about tomorrow before bed will cause anxiety instead of eliminating it. These three enemies work together to ensure you go to sleep unprepared, that your brain spends the night consolidating patterns of defeat, and that you wake up tomorrow the same way you woke up today. Already losing the first battle, already negotiating with the alarm, already sabotaging the day before it even begins. Grayson defeated these three enemies every night for 6 months in Bastogne. You need to defeat them tonight if you want to wake up tomorrow differently than you have for the last 1,000 days. The difference between knowing Grayson's protocol and living Grayson's protocol was the same difference that separated living soldiers from dead soldiers at Bastogne. My grandfather documented that after Grayson finally explained his method to other soldiers in the unit in February 1945, 8 men said they would begin applying it. All 8 understood the logic. All 8 agreed it made sense. All 8 promised to dedicate 15 minutes before bed to preparing their minds. But when my grandfather checked 2 weeks later, only 2 were actually doing it. The other 6 had tried for 1, 2, maybe 3 nights, and then reverted to their old habits. Passing out from exhaustion, distracting their minds with anything, letting the last conscious thought of the day be random and purposeless. Of those 6 who abandoned the protocol, 4 died in the following weeks. Of the 2 who maintained it, both survived until the end of the war. What my grandfather realized wasn't that the protocol was difficult to execute. 15 minutes doesn't require supernatural abilities. Mental visualization doesn't require years of practice. Making decisions in advance doesn't demand genius. The protocol was simple, direct, brutal in its lack of complexity. What was difficult, what separated those who survived from those who died, was the consistency of doing something that seemed unimportant until the moment it absolutely mattered. Soldiers who performed the protocol for 1 or 2 nights didn't see immediate and dramatic results. They didn't suddenly wake up transformed. The mental preparation worked cumulatively, building neural patterns over days and weeks, strengthening automatic responses through consistent repetition. But most gave up before the compounded effects manifested because they were looking for instant magic instead of accumulated discipline. You're making the exact same mistake that killed those 4 soldiers. You'll read about the 15-minute protocol. You'll understand the logic. You'll agree that it makes sense. Maybe you'll even try it tonight. Maybe tomorrow night too. But on the 3rd or 4th night, when exhaustion sets in, when distraction calls, when you don't see immediate miraculous results, you'll give up. You'll go back to passing out from exhaustion with your phone in hand. You'll go back to letting your last conscious thought of the day be a random notification or a meaningless video. You'll go back to waking up disoriented, unprepared, already losing the first battle. And you'll continue in this cycle until you slowly die over decades, wasting all the potential that never manifested because you couldn't keep something simple long enough for it to work. The protocol doesn't fail. People fail the protocol. Grayson didn't have anything you don't have. He wasn't smarter, he didn't have superhuman willpower, he didn't possess some special gift for discipline. He simply understood that in war, average consistency beats inconsistent talent. 15 minutes of mental preparation every night, without exception, without negotiation, without days off, accumulated over weeks, created an advantage. That meant the difference between a body that returned home and a body that remained frozen in a trench. You have the same choice tonight. You can implement the protocol and maintain it long enough for the compound effects to manifest. Or you can try for a few days, see no instant magic, and revert to the old patterns that keep you exactly where you are, stuck, frustrated, wasting days that turn into years, that turn into a life you no longer recognize as your own. The last entry about Sergeant Michael Grayson in my grandfather's diary was dated May 8, 1945, the day the war in Europe officially ended. Grayson had survived Bastogne, the following months of intense combat, and 17 direct attacks where men beside him died. My grandfather wrote, "Today, Grayson told me that the nightly ritual saved his life more times than he can count, not because it made German bullets less dangerous, but because it ensured that when they came, his mind was ready." He said he will continue doing the 15 minutes every night for the rest of his life, even without war, because he understands that the battle against the uncontrolled mind never ends. 62 years later, when Grayson died at 87, his daughter found notebooks where he had maintained the protocol until the last week of his life, 15 minutes every night without exception, preparing his mind for the next day's war, even when there were no more Germans shooting, only the daily battle of living with purpose. Instead of simply existing, you are reading about this protocol 80 years after it was developed under enemy fire in Bastogne. 80 years, and it remains valid because the nature of the human mind hasn't changed. You still wake up the same way you went to sleep. You still carry into the next day the mental chaos you allowed the day before. You still lose the first battle of the morning because you never prepared your mind to win it. The only difference between you and Private Robert Hayes is that Hayes died quickly due to unpreparedness, and you are dying slowly. But slow death is still death. Waking up at 50, 60, 70 years old, realizing you wasted decades because you never learned to prepare your mind to win the invisible war you face every day, is just another way of dying frozen in a trench. Only it took longer and hurts more deeply. Tonight, you have a choice. You can do what most people do. Fall asleep from exhaustion with your phone in hand. Let your last conscious thought be a random distraction. Wake up tomorrow disoriented and already losing the first battle before even getting out of bed. Or you can dedicate 15 minutes to clearing your mind of the day that has passed, visualizing tomorrow's battlefield, and making advanced decisions about how you will react when laziness whispers, when temptation appears, when the alarm rings, and your mind is still foggy. 15 minutes, that can be the difference between waking up prepared to win or waking up prepared to lose, as you have been losing every day for years. Grayson maintained this protocol for 62 years after the war. You can't keep it up for a week because you're looking for magic, instead of accepting that simple, brutal discipline, repeated consistently, is what separates a wasted life from a life lived with purpose. If you want to honor Sergeant Michael Grayson, Private Robert Hayes, who died for not having this knowledge, and all the soldiers my grandfather lost at Bastogne, then like this video now, subscribe to this channel, and leave a comment saying which specific battle you will prepare your mind to win tomorrow. Don't abandon these men. Don't let them have paid the ultimate price so that you could learn without bleeding, and then simply ignore what they taught. Help spread this protocol to others who are locked in the same invisible war, dying slowly because no one taught them that tomorrow's war is won today, in the last 15 minutes before closing their eyes.